There are two areas in the focus on space in our chapter 5. Space is very important in art. And there are two focuses that I would like to make with respect to space. This will be the first video on space, and then there will be a second one that will focus heavily on the textbook. But space is one of those elements, tools, used by the artist in order to create a work. Space is used in interior design, space is used in architecture, and space is used on the canvas. Space is used in a magazine. What we call white space is very important. So your article or what you're trying to get people to read is therefore focused upon, becomes the centrality of what you're trying to say. So if we look at space, it's an element of art that refers to distances around objects, between objects, and space can be, in many cases, usually the object is called positive space, and the surrounding space behind it is negative. So when we look at those two pieces on the left, we see the first one looks like a cup or a chalice, but then when you look carefully, you'll see it looks like two faces, two people, two human beings facing each other. So you see where that negative space is used in a figurative sense. Then you look at the Sherlock Holmes silhouette there, you see it's strictly positive, negative space. Franz Kline, the abstract expressionist, used to just use black and white paint, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on. So now we get space. How do we get depth at space? And the word perspective is going to be a very important part, visual or linear or aerial perspective. In other words, there are two types of perspective. There's linear perspective, which focuses on lines, and then we have aerial perspective, which focuses on an atmosphere. So when we go back and look at this, we see Van Gogh's work on the left, this scene in a Paris cafe. And our eye almost, if you look at the center of that rectangle, takes you down the street. It leads you to a point. And in perspective, we call that the vanishing point. On the right, you see an interior that's very warm, but very spacious. You feel like you have space to move around, particularly in the foreground. This is very important in interior design. Space, distance. As things go further away, they get lighter, but in this case, they don't. So it becomes what we call flat. In other words, everything seems to be on the picture plane on the same level. Now here we see Mary White's painting called Acorn, and I love this painting because if I presented to you, and I may do it in one of the assignments, what is wrong here? Why is she so sad? What is she running away from? What is the nature of her unhappiness and the environment around her? Fantastic painting, and one which you could sit and wonder all day and keep your mind on people who might not be as fortunate as we are. Then Jack Hanula's work, The Art of the City. Look how everything is directed down the street toward the center, and we call this perspective. Look how the rays of light come to a point, and it sort of guides our eyes. So space is an element of art. It refers to the emptiness or the area around an object. And positive space takes up that shape, shapes the form of interest. It's a human being or a piece of sculpture or a car. And it's in the painting or photograph or what we have. Negative space, however, is that empty space between shapes. And negative space, as Franz Klein will show us, the negative space, he just paints it black and white. And when he paints a white shape, he creates, when he paints a black shape, he creates a white shape. And we have a positive and negative interacting with each other. Then we have what is called 3D space. And right now, everyone's all fascinated with 3D television, but you'd like to walk around things. One of the things about sculpture, particularly 3D sculptures, you can walk around it. In the museum, when we go to the Metropolitan Museum, you're going to see that you can walk around a work of art. And thus, the sculptor says, I can give you 360 different views as you walk around a three-dimensional work. So it is with sculpture and with architecture, with jewelry, with many different things that have dimensions to them. Remember, 3D, we have not only length and width, but we have depth and we have volume and we have weight. And then, of course, we have space in which it's taking up. Two-dimensional, that's more like a painting or drawing. We see the length and the width, and then, of course, we create depth. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit later on when we talk about aerial perspective. So the point of view refers to the angle in which you view an object, from the top, from the bottom, from the side. And these are all different points of view. Now, we can have illusions of space. I love this piece. There's a piece here. There's a subtlety. And yet, it looks like it's somewhat of a fence in the way, but it's there. And it is fascinating. The atmosphere, or the sense, I get a sense of mystery looking through that doorway. Then we have what is called psychological space. And I do this every semester. And students, I want you to listen to me very clearly now, because I call this let the world give you your space. You need space. You should never have someone crowd you in terms of your livelihood or the way you live. There's a term we use sometimes, but we say they suffocated the person. They're always on the person. They can't move. And you need your space as an intellectual, academic individual, irrespective of who you're married to or what have you. You need your space. The permanency of a marriage, in my opinion, just one opinion, is that there's a complement between two personalities, not that they become one and thus one dominating the other. So let the world give you your space. What do you mean? There are different types of space in which you function. And this is the abstract meaning in the art sense, but it's very important, and in the psychological sense. Shared living space with the world, the same planet. We might not ever see some of the people who live on this planet during our lifetime, and yet we are sharing the same planet, the same air. When that becomes a problem, it's when, as in the case of China right now, where the toxic fumes are going into the atmosphere that could affect the whole world climate. And that's when shared living space becomes a problem. Then there's what we call operating space. What do you mean operating space? There are certain people who had contact with you, but you never knew them. A pilot on a plane, a bus driver, the butcher that cut the meat that you purchased. That person is in your operating space. Acquaintances and people with whom you must come in contact in order to successfully operate in this world. Plumbers, pilots, surgeons, grocery store, car mechanics. You don't have to know these people or be close to these people, but they are what you call in your operating space. You have to be very careful about people you kick out of your operating space. Then the third is intimate space. These are lovers, wives, husbands, relatives, close personal friends. just close friends, roommates, people in college who become very intimate in their space, and they share. They share all kinds of thoughts. There are no inhibitions about what they think. They talk to each other, and particularly in marriage, it becomes a complementary thing. But here's the one I want you to focus in on as an artist and as an art appreciation student. It's what I call personal private space. That area of your mind and heart and spirit, which really only belongs to you. You may share it, but it should be a place for your most private thoughts. Sometimes you can't let people into your inner space unless you know them very well. But that's where the creative side of you comes through. You can dream, you can contemplate, you can resolve, you can think, you can imagine. You can do all kinds of things in your personal private space without anyone else knowing about it. You can fantasize. You can put yourself and imagine yourself in certain instances. And this is very close to creativeness in the art field because many people will paint themselves or dress themselves or put in a photograph what they would like to be as opposed to who and uh, who they are. So let's review it again in this circular form. We have let the world give you your space, shared living space. That's where we share with the people in Africa and in Asia and in Europe. And it becomes a problem only when they affect your way of life. Then we have operating space, people who you need to function. That person that works in the power plant, you need that person for your electricity. And then we have the intimate space, people who are close friends, people you share with. And last but not least, which is the most important, your personal, private, creative space, which only belongs to you. That's yours. It's private. It's yours to express if you want. It's yours to share if you want. But it is yours. So space can be seen in a multiplicity of ways. A painting, this painting almost takes us way into the distance, and yet we know we don't go beyond that bathtub. This space takes an illusion. We don't know what's behind that light back there, but it becomes mysterious. And then we see interior space. Look on the right where you see the enclosed, but it's not really enclosed. The glass gives it light, gives it atmosphere, and the space opens up. Look at the light color on the left, that interior, the stairway that flows down. And then look at that charming chandelier that hangs from the top. Then we go sculpture around the world. The Greeks, and on the left, that's in Greece, you see a ideal female figure, and you see that the Greeks believe that the body is the temple of the soul. That's what Plato said. So they kind of almost worship the body, that physical body. Then we see how Michelangelo, this is the face of the Virgin Mary in the Pietà. And look at her face. She looks like she's about 14 years old. But that's the power of an artist. Michelangelo never knew his mother. She died when he was about 6 months old. But he always pictured her, and there's where that personal private space comes in. He pictured her as this solemn person. And so he put her picture, and this is what he did. He put his heroes into his artwork. When we see the Sistine Chapel a little bit later, we will see where Michelangelo, the man that represents God, touching the hand of Adam, that's Michelangelo's father. He painted the likeness of him in there. We also can react to. Did you know that some people can show you things, a chocolate bar or something on television, especially at football games, the beers and all the chips. And you go running out because that visual affected your appetite. So I don't know if you like strawberries or not, but this is designed to stimulate your appetite, but it's a work of art. It's a painting. Look at these cast works. In other words, when we cast something, we take it from its form and put it into metal so that it can endure the elements. That piece of sculpture there could never be outside if it were wood or a pliable material. And then, of course, space works, positive, negative. Look at the zebra. Look at the movement of the zebra. And there's a lot of activity going on those two panels. Look at the space we see just between buildings. And you have to be very perceptive to see the uniqueness of that space as you look upward. So then we have what is called linear perspective. What word is in linear perspective? What word is in linear? Line. So what we do is we take lines and we go to what we call a vanishing point. And then we have what is called a horizon line. Now this is very important. And we create distances through lines. See, when you look at something, your eye really comes to a point. You don't see a dual object. It comes to a point. Well, in linear perspective, we have what is called the horizon line. That's where the earth meets the sky. And then we have what is called a vanishing point. That's as far as we can see. And when we draw this cube, even this line here is going to the vanishing point. Look at this line. It's going to the vanishing point. At the top of the box is going to the vanishing point. The top over on this side. Look, these lines are all connected. This is what we call two-point perspective. So even when you look at a train track, you know that train track does not come and join in a point, but that's how it appears to our eyes. So we have a vanishing point, and then we have a horizon line, and then everything works from there. You can see the cube. Looks like it's floating in the air, but it's all working to that vanishing point. And maybe we'll try perspective drawing. Look at this bedroom, which is very warm. They use a molding around it, crown molding at the top, a beautiful orange drapery, and we see the orange carpet. It's a little bit too much of a print for me. I wish I could take and use this color in the carpet. But of course, that's my preference. I don't know what your preference might be. Space is important in interior design. Put too many things in, then you become confused. And that room is beginning to become confused with all the books and all the red. And yet, look at the two pillars on the side. They represent balance. Every once in a while, you will see a bit of red popping up as one of the major colors. This one's becoming a little bit busy. We call it busy, but activity. More and more, you see the neutral, you see the color, and you see the accent. Yet, when you look at space, look at that glass table, that cocktail table here. Because it's glass, if there were wood, it would appear to be heavier. But because it's glass, it is appearing to be lighter. So glass makes things, lighter colors make things look lighter. If you wear light clothes or dark clothes make a person look smaller, light clothes make a person look a little bit larger. Look at the space of this room and how it's used. And look at the space. Here we have a sitting space. Of course, this chair over here looks a little bit out of place because who does this individual talk to? At least we can have a conversational unit on this side. And notice how the colors work because we have neutrals and we have the wood, and then we can bring in accent colors. Notice how slightly curved lines, we talked about line in our last chapter. Notice how this slightly curved line, this is the curved line that the artist loves to use. It signifies, as we said before, gracefulness. And look at these, the way these drapes are drawn back here. There's a sense of gracefulness as this room. And the main feature of the room, not the chairs, not the carpet, but the window treatment. Now, look how lines begin to make you move up and down and around. And yet, as things go farther away, it's called optical art, how it plays with your eyes. Another case, the illusion of things changing, the illusion of depth, the illusion when you put shadows in. And then there's someone who looks like they're on a hammock on the right. So aerial perspective, though, is different from linear perspective in that it's designed to produce an atmosphere of depth and distances. And so as things come closer, three things happen. One, they become clearer. When you do a photograph, if you notice, if you focus on that object, then everything else is blurred. It plays it down. And the object you focused on is very clear. But as things come closer to you, they become clearer, they become larger, and they become darker. As things go also lower on the picture plane. But as things come closer, or as they go farther away, they get lighter, they get higher on the picture plane, and less focused. Look at this. This is darker, and this is behind it, and this mountain is behind this, and this mountain is behind that. Notice how each case they're getting lighter and lighter. They're getting higher on the picture plane and becoming less focused. So atmospheric or aerial perspective, we can use them synonymously. How does the artist achieve depth? It makes the things that are forward darker, and then as things go further away, they become lighter and lighter and creates an atmosphere and a depth like none other. Look at this atmosphere that we see here. Look at it in the scene of the ocean. And then look at the motion and depth that Georgia O'Keeffe creates with her flowers. Last but not least, we get a nice sense, even with light, how it creates a distance. We feel these peaches and the grapes and the watermelon much closer than anything that we find. We play everything down behind it. So dominance can play a role in one's thinking about space. So this is our first discussion of space, and I want to go next to the textbook where we get a more another point of view, and then we'll maybe answer some questions about space. Very important to the artist. No, no.